He say, follow me.
The harvest is plentiful, laborers few. The retelling's here to share the good news of J-E-S-U-S.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of
The Retelling.
Today's episode is titled The Good Samaritan, aka Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Won't you be my neighbor?
Throwback to a childhood
Right.
favorite, for sure. So in the Good Samaritan, this is one of the parables, and I think we often see this as like a story about being kind, but really it's about more than being kind. It's about being kind when it's not convenient, being kind when you have to go out of your way, kind of go above and beyond, being kind when it's not necessarily something that you're going to throw up on the gram and, #blessed. It is about who our neighbors are and how we can show the love and mercy that we receive from God in our actions towards our neighbors. In my kind of preparation for this episode, I really thought about what is a parable, because in my mind, I always kind of call them like stories that Jesus told. And basically, yeah. So the word parable comes from a Greek word, and I may get this wrong because, spoiler alert, I'm not a Greek historian. So I think it comes from the Greek word parabola, but that also reminded me of a parabola, which is like an algebra word, so I may have that completely wrong.
But we're going to go with it.
We're
gonna go with it.
Like, if you know better, just go ahead and correct me in the comments. It's perfectly fine. And they are comparisons to daily life that Jesus told in his ministry. And I think it really just helped to make the word more digestible and memorable for people. Because remember, as Jesus was teaching, the Bible wasn't completely finished yet. Like, he's telling the Bible as the Bible is happening. So there's no Bible for people to go back and reference as far as the New Testament. And it's also not like that they could just kind of look things up on the internet. So they have Jesus's word, they have what they're writing down in their own notes, and they have kind of word of mouth from his story. So he uses the parables to make his
point known.
Make his teaching a little easier to digest. And it honestly reminded me a lot too of like when we go to sermons and the preacher tells us a relatable story, that helps me personally remember a lot more. And I'm like, oh yeah, he compared it to this modern thing and now I get it. So I think that's apparently been a method of teaching that has worked over the years. So
There's nothing new under the sun.
nothing new. Love to see it. Now, Bible check. The story of the Good Samaritan is in the New Testament and is in the book of Luke, chapter 10, verses 25 to 37. We always say you can correct us, you can check it, do what you do. We love for you to read the Bible. So
Read it for yourself. Make sure you read it for yourself, because there's no way to know if you are being fed the truth or if you're being fed a fallacy other than knowing the word of God for yourself. Like, you can only fact check people when you know the facts.
Yeah, that will be step one. Now, the parable is fairly short, so I'm actually just going to go ahead and read it here. You can follow along if you would like to. I believe I have the NIV version. And like I said, it's Luke 10, 25 through 37. So, background, Jesus is in his teaching era. And in 25, it says, on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. And people tested Jesus a lot during his ministry because they just wanted to know that he was who he said he was.
Mm-hmm. And it was mostly the experts. You notice how there's quotes there. Mm-hmm. The experts. Yeah. And those would be considered the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They were the people of that time that knew the law, right? So they were supposed to be helping uphold the law of Moses, if you will. And they were more worried about the law itself than the people, which is where Jesus is always trying to make the differentiation, right? He's trying to differentiate between, the law is good and the law is still valid. However, people hold more weight than the law. Like, we should be loving people more than just being like, we don't care about you, it's just law. It's this, and there's no room for grace And so in this parable is where God is showing us grace. And loving your
mercy,
loving your neighbor.
Loving your neighbor. Yeah. So the experts, they have been looked up to as like the leaders of the society, and then Jesus comes in like remix. And they're not about it. So
Let me run it back.
Challenged. Yes. So the man says, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law?" He replied, "How do you read it?" So that was from Jesus. And then the man answers, Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." And we call that the greatest commandment. I'm actually going to reference later on some biblical verses that are very much similar to that. So stay tuned. "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this and you will live." But the man wanted to justify himself. So he asked Jesus, "Well, then who's my neighbor?" Right? And that's a valid question. Who is my neighbor? If I'm supposed to love my neighbor, who is it? So Jesus responds with this parable. In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side." Yikes. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, and that's like a daily wage for a laborer. He gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have." So after the story is over, Jesus looks back at this teacher, this expert, and says, "Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers?" Of course, the expert in the law responds, "The one who had mercy on him." And Jesus tells him to go and do likewise. So that is the parable. A very well-known parable. And I just want to break it down a little bit.
Break it down.
Break it down. It is short, but there's some historical significance in this. And when I first read it, I was like, okay, why did all of these people walk past this man? Who is bleeding on the side of the road? That seems so crazy and heartless, even though it happens in today's society too. We see issues and pass them by all the time. But I just wanted to understand more about reasons why, especially because for a priest to walk by, I was like, what?
Because you wouldn't expect that part.
Yeah. I absolutely was not expecting that. So I looked it up. And the priest and the Levite, I think, have a lot of the same reasons for not helping. And it goes into kind of the social hierarchy of things, but also the idea of purity. So they're not supposed to touch a corpse or anyone that has blood on them, because the idea was that it would kind of defile them and prevent them from doing their priestly duties.
And that's where you get rules over man. Yes. They're like, I can't help because I'm going to be defiled.
Yeah. So they're looking and they're like, I'm not trying to mess up what I got to do. So hopefully someone else comes through to help you. Okay. And all of the priests are Levites, which is one of the 12 tribes of Israel, descended from Levites, that makes sense. But not every Levite is a priest. Right. So they have duties in the tabernacle. It could be that they are a priest. It could be that they are a musician, a helper, doing rituals, readings of the Torah, what have you. So the priest, I think, walks by because he's like, ugh. I can't deal with the blood. I need to be in the tabernacle doing what I gotta do. And I think the Levite, it's very much the same idea. So he's not a priest, but he is still holding himself to those rules that exist. So that is maybe why they walk by. We'll see. And then also, I thought about too, just that journey, right? I think this time was almost like the Wild West is how I imagined it. Because this man was attacked by a group of robbers. Like, that's not something that you necessarily see every day, you know? So it also could have been a safety thing where, you know, is this a setup? Are they still waiting to come out and get me? They could have even been thinking like, well, maybe someone else will handle it, as humans often do, see a problem and hope someone else will get to it, but not I. So those were some of the reasons that I kind of thought or looked up. And then the Samaritan, of course, is the one who is interested in actually helping, and not just helping, but going above and beyond. So he sees the man, he is obviously in pain, he is going through a hard time, he stops, he handles the wounds, he makes sure that he can heal up nice and good. He puts him on his donkey. Like, he could have just stopped and, you know, gave the man a Band-Aid or said, ooh, that's rough, like, let me get you a little bit of water or something. But he took care of the wounds, put him on his donkey, and then spent a day of his wages to put him in the inn and be taken care of. So he went above and beyond in helping out a stranger.
He was selfless.
Yes,
Whereas if you think about the priests, they were selfish and thinking about, oh, it's going to affect me, and not thinking about how can I help this person, right? And we do that a lot.
Neighbor, yeah. I think that Jesus uses the Samaritan in this story to highlight that it can be anyone that can be a good neighbor. So the Samaritans and the Jewish people are beefing. There are a lot of beef in the Bible. This is one of them. And the Samaritans, they're not necessarily Gentiles. They're not necessarily Jewish. I think that they kind of just combined different religions and had some pagan gods that they were worshiping too. So they kind of did their own thing. From my research, that's what I understood. Again, if I'm wrong on that, you can correct me. I will not have my feelings hurt whatsoever. But that seemed to be what was going on. So the Jewish people really didn't like the Samaritans because they had this kind of like bastardization going on of things. But then Jesus uses a Samaritan to kind of be the hero of the story. Like, the Jewish priest walks past, the Levite walks past, the Samaritan stops and helps. And I think that's to show that our neighbor isn't always the convenient choice. You know, it's not just the people that we like. We are called to be a neighbor to everyone, to love everyone, to help everyone. And in that, our actions can glorify God, which is a beautiful thing. Also, the story doesn't specifically say that the man who was beaten was Jewish. It's just kind of assumed because of the path he was walking. It was between Jericho and Jerusalem, which was a heavily traveled Jewish path. He could have maybe not been Jewish, but generally it assumed that he was Jewish, and that kind of goes into the Jewish and the Samaritan. So that all comes together, makes sense.
And you would think that your people would help you, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, my guy, we the same, right? And that's not how that worked. And I think that Jesus showing the difference of it doesn't matter who it is, right? We should all be stepping up to the plate. And the least likely, the Samaritan would have been the least likely to help if you'd have thought about the Jews and how they thought about the Samaritans, because the Samaritans would have been looked at as less than.
Yeah.
Right.
Like outcast.
Exactly. And so you wouldn't think that they're going to help you. You wouldn't expect it, and nor probably would you even want it if you're looking at somebody as lesser than. But that is the person who steps up to the plate. The one who is lesser than is the one who steps up to the plate.
Yeah. The person that you would think would just walk on past and say, oh, he wouldn't help me if I was in this situation. But that is the exact person that provides some help. So in reading this story, I thought, just like the man who challenged Jesus, like, well, who is my neighbor? Is everyone my neighbor? Is Bisa my neighbor because we live in the same town? Is it the people in my church that are my neighbors? Like, who is my neighbor? Who? So I went to some different verses in the Bible, and it's really interesting because even though they occur in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and these are in 4 different books, they very much have the same message, or it's kind of the same message being added onto a little bit. So in Leviticus chapter 19 verse 18, it says, "You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against any of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord." That's God speaking there. And in Deuteronomy 6:5, you have "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength." So already we're being told that what our job as Christians to do is A, love God, B, love others. And then in the New Testament, we see it in Matthew 22, verses 37-39. Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So we see it again. And then in Luke 27, which just came from the Good Samaritan, it's he answered, Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. So I thought it was so interesting that those 4 verses are in different books of the Bible, but they just keep coming up. Love the Lord, love God, love him with your heart, love him with your soul, and love your neighbor.
Love your neighbor.
Love your neighbor. So, like, when I see things repeated in the Bible, different themes, different words, different phrasing, to me, I'm like, okay, clearly that's important, right? Like, we're not saying it more than once because, it's just by circumstance. Like, everything God has done is so intentional. And the way that the Bible is put together is with intentionality. So that message being on repeat to me shows me like we really need to be zoned in, of course, in loving God and wanting to know more about him and learning more about him, but also in loving those around us. So our neighbor isn't just my next door neighbor. Our neighbor is everyone. Everyone.
Everybody.
Yes.
Everybody.
For real. Everybody. So, but this is my neighbor. You're my neighbor. We all neighbors.
We neighbors.
Period.
Yep. The person in Canada, the person in India, they are my neighbor. And so I think that the beauty in having verses repeated, sometimes they're repeated consistently the same message in terms of wording, and sometimes they repeated different wording but same messaging. And so God gives confirmation. I see it as confirmation. He reaffirms time after time after time after time like what we are to do. Hey, I told you here, but just in case you forgot, I put it here, and here too. So there's nowhere that you would forget, right? You can always confirm, reaffirm God's word because he's always reminding us of how he's calling us. And I think that, the difference, some people think that the stories of the Bible are allegorical stories. Like they're just not true. No, these are historical references. Now the parables aren't, right? The parables are stories because it is Jesus telling a story to make a point. He is trying to show you something by painting a picture for you, right? But the other stories of the Bible, when we talked about Jonah, when we talk about Jacob, those are actual historical people who went through what we're talking about. Yeah. Right? So there's a difference in parables, which are stories told by Jesus, which are not real people, but he's just painting a picture to get you to understand what he is pointing out to you as truth and what you need to know. And then you have your actual Bible stories where there are people who went through real things, some that you can relate to, some worse than you could relate to, and some that, maybe you can't relate to, but you know someone who's gone through it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to not think about the parables as being like, oh, it's just a story, or it's like a fairy tale, or it's like a fable. Like, no, it is a story, but it is a story that Jesus is telling with purpose to teach. There's
a lesson.
Yes, biblical truth. So yes, they are stories, but no, it's not like, this fairy tale kind of thing. Like, take that just as seriously as you do the historical truths in the Bible, because it is there for a reason. As we said, it's all very intentional. Period. Okay. So when we think about who our neighbors are, it's not about proximity, right? It's not about who lives closest to you. It's about compassion. And I think that this story in particular really calls us to love our neighbors who are different from us, to love our neighbors who we maybe don't like too much, So helping out that coworker that gives you the stank eye every day, helping out your family member that works your last nerve. helping out the person that you know is not going to be able to return the favor. And not just asking like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? But just doing, just helping. Like one thing our church does is they hand out what we call blessing bags for those who are homeless, and there's different snacks in there, some resources, little pamphlets about the Bible and local resources. So we have those to just hand out at any time. So if we are driving and someone is, asking for help, asking for money, asking for food, we can just give them that bag. And it's a literal like drawstring book bag. We have that ready to go to give to them. So just doing, like having people's needs ready to be met before they can ask. Being a good neighbor. And when we love our neighbors, we're able to demonstrate the love that God has for us. Like we can never pay God back. We can never show anyone as much mercy or compassion as he has shown us. But when we love our neighbors, when we care for others, we can honor God. And I think it's important too, not to get mixed up. I'm not talking about just doing like good acts, right? Like good acts alone are not going to get you to heaven. You have to believe that Jesus died on the cross to save us for our sins. You have to ask for him to save us. But those good acts really just allow us to show the love of Jesus. So to be out volunteering in your neighborhood, to be helping others, do that. Absolutely, I encourage it. But that alone is not going to be the main thing in your walk with Jesus. You also need to be knowing the Bible and trust and believe that Jesus is our Savior.
Yep.
Okay. I just don't want y'all to have that mixed up. Yeah. So, this story also, of course, made me think about like my own kind of Good Samaritan stories and different encounters that I have had. And for me, I think during COVID, an article had came out about how to help someone that is grieving, because of course, a lot of us were in grieving during COVID. And a really good point that it made was when someone is grieving or when someone is in distress or just going through something, a big thing that we say is like, I'll pray for you and what can I do to help? And those are great. Don't get me wrong, but the article really challenged people to just do, just go ahead and do, if someone's going through something, because when you are grieving, when you are in crisis, it's hard to say like, well, this is what I need. Can you do this? And to make those arrangements. So it's best to just go ahead and like, hey, everybody got to eat. Like, here's a little gift card for some food, or, just pop up on your close friends. Like, let me help you arrange the house. What can we get together, instead of asking. And I like to tell people, like, I'm praying for you right now. Like, I am not going to pray for you, but I'm praying for you right now. If we're together, let's pray. Let's just stop and pray. Because I think when we say like, oh, I'll pray for you, it's easy to forget. We get swept up with other things in life. And then a couple days go by and it's like, ooh.
And what was I supposed to pray for? And who? What
Exactly.
and who? And even with text messages, if someone's going through and I'm like, well, how can I pray for you? I will send them the prayer. I will pray right then and there. Cause I'm good for like forgetting.
Yeah.
So, and you know what I used to do when people said pray for me, if I didn't pray right then, I started making a list of names and putting next to it like what it was, and then when I would go through like fasting and praying, I would try to make sure I prayed for them.
Yeah.
I haven't been as diligent in that, but I have been better at just praying right then, because I think that is way more effective. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. And I've recently and I have meant to do this for a long time, but was not very good with following through. Like, I've started to write down prayers, just because I want to be able to go back and look at them and remember in the future, like, dang, I was praying on this thing and like, look how God worked it out. I want to make sure that my prayers are strengthening. I want to be able to go back and look on them during good times, during bad times, during all the time. So writing down prayers has been a super cool thing. And if I go back and I see like I prayed for such and such for a friend and I can see the way that God is working in their life, whoo!
Feels good.
Absolutely love to see it. Absolutely love to see it, definitely. And then my kind of example of that, and it's funny because I never shared this article with my mom, But I've seen it worked out through her actions. And my mom's not even a believer. Like, of course, it's something that I'm praying on and hoping will come to fruition. But in her actions with her friends, I saw a lot of that. Not like, what can I do? Just, I'm here to
Showing
do
up.
it. Yes.
Showing up.
So one of her close friends lost her father, and it was devastating to her, as you can imagine. And my mom just instantly was like, okay, got the edible arrangement, cool, that's done. My mom was helping to make funeral arrangements. She was helping out to pick the caterer. She was dealing with a lot of those details to allow her friend to just have the time to process, to have the time to grieve, to have the time to sleep and take care of herself. Like, my mom was orchestrating so many things in the background. And when I looked at that, I was like, wow. Like, hey, God, you gave me such a good mom. Thank you. But also, like, that is the person that I want to be. You know, I want to be the friend that is already there. That's not saying, what can I do? But it is done. It is done. I want to be supportive in that. And, you know, I feel called to be that person as a follower. So seeing someone who's not a follower of Jesus already doing the work, I was like, okay, God, I see you. I absolutely see you. And it can be in the small things, you know? To me, like, one of the biggest demonstrations of love is when it snows, wiping off someone else's car, like wiping a little snow off, because it's cold. Nobody likes to do it at all.
I don't want to shovel nothing, and I don't want to wipe nothing down.
No, like, you got to put on all those layers. And back when I had first moved to the area, I had a roommate. We were teachers, and we were like broke. So yeah, absolutely had a roommate. And they wiped off my windshield one day. So when I came out to do it, I was like, what a beautiful thing. You know, and it can be the small things, just smiling at someone, just holding the door when someone's, you know, not exactly directly behind you, and saying, take your time.
Don't run.
Yeah.
Don't forget that. I mean, we've done that, right? I've definitely done that. And even like a hug. I remember there was this person, she was always smiling. And then one day, there weren't a lot of smiles. And so I was like, come here, let me give you a hug. They're the best free gifts ever. They're free. They're free gifts. They're free gifts that cost you nothing. And I gave her the biggest hug, and like a couple days later, she was like, you don't know how much I needed that. You never know what someone is going through. You never know exactly what someone needs, right? And sometimes just a hello, a smile, a hug, a meal, you just never know. Those things really can go a long way. And so I think sometimes we need to anticipate what people need. And I know sometimes that's hard, but there are other times where you really can anticipate what people need. And then on top of that, just being able to give when you see someone is in need, because there's so many times we want to put our own perceptions on it. And like when people ask for money, like the homeless, they ask for money. If I have something, I'll give it. If they're asking for food and I don't have monetarily, I can't give them anything, I'll be like, I'll buy you something. We can go to the nearest wherever and I'll buy you something. And if they're like, nah, then I mean,
you tried.
I did my best. I did my best. But to be like, oh, I'm not going to give because they might use it for X, Y, and Z. That's between them and God, right? God just calls us to do. So if you say you need $10 or you need a couple dollars and I have a couple dollars to give, then I'm going to give it to you. And whatever you do with it is what you do with it. If you tell me you're going to use it for food, then I am going to try to trust that you're going to use it for food regardless of what you look like, because we can't place our opinions just on how people look on the outside, right? They may look like that. It's been rough. They may use, I don't know, but they also really may be hungry, right? And so if I give you the money and you decide to do whatever with it, that's on you. That's between you and God. And I don't want to say or try to assume what you're going to do with the money because I don't know. And it could really be a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what do you lose from it? You were gonna spend that $5 on Wendy's or McDonald's that you ain't need anyway. So why not?
Exactly. Why not help someone out? And if you've ever been in a position to help someone that's, outside asking for help, they are usually just so grateful. And, so often the response is, God bless you. Just God bless you. Thank you. And that's such a beautiful thing to be able to help others and to be able to help others. It's a beautiful thing for sure. So I hope that you can think about what it means to be a good neighbor. I hope that you have some time to kind of reflect a bit on how you could be a good neighbor, what that looks like for you. Pray on it. God, how can I use the talents and gifts that you've given me to be a blessing to someone else? How can I honor you through my actions? How can I lift up that person that I don't necessarily like very much? Like, what can I do to fix this relationship and truly be the good neighbor that you have called me to be? We've all been helped out at some point. Like, we have all been assisted by a Good Samaritan, hopefully. So, think about what your Good Samaritan story is. I would love to hear it. If you want to drop it in the comments or let us know, I think that would be a super cool thing to hear. Like, I love when I hear about things like paying it forward in the Starbucks line, or, just being a good friend, showing up, helping someone change a tire, giving someone a hug.
Or even when you stepped outside of your comfort zone. I have a story. So I was living with someone. We were roommates. I found it on Craigslist. And so it became tumultuous really fast. And I'm not going to go into all the details. But I thought I was going to go to jail. I thought I was going to have to lay hands on this person. And I didn't. But I was ready to get out of there. And so this person had did so many inconsiderate things to kind of piss me off anytime I made them upset. And then they would try to retaliate. And not that I was intentionally making them upset. It would be something like, it was so silly, but they didn't want a trash can in the bathroom. And I'm like, okay, well, I put one in the bathroom. And during your time of the month, some people use pads, you wrap them up real good, And so I wrapped it up real good, put it in the trash can, and they claimed they could smell it all through the house. And when I say that was not the case. And so they were so upset. The next morning, actually, they were in the bathroom. They left for work before I did, so they would go in the bathroom first. So this time they stayed in the bathroom forever, and they were past their time, and I needed to be in the bathroom. And I politely knocked on the door and asked how long they were going to be. And she was like, I'll let you know when I'm done. Okay. I'm fuming, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to let it go. And then they left all of the spit from brushing their teeth in the sink, like with water. Like, they left water in the sink, and then all this spit. And now I have to brush my teeth, but I was like, okay, fine. I used the tub. I wasn't ready to mess with the sink. I'm like, I'm going to use the tub. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to continue to move forward. And there were other things that this person did that I'm not really going to get into, but it was stuff like that they were doing. And so when it came time to move, they needed to find somewhere to put their storage. They had no idea. They weren't talking to me. They were ignoring me. But then they came to my room and asked me for help.
The situations that I will put you in.
And so I helped, not even begrudgingly. I was like, oh, this is where I put my storage. I helped them look it up online and everything. And now, humanly being in my feelings, did I want to be a butt? Absolutely. But does that show them who God is? Absolutely not. They wouldn't have been able to see God in me, even if they don't know who God is, just to be able to see that regardless of, because they know what they did to me, but regardless of what they did, I still showed up and helped this person to do a couple of things to be able to move when they needed to move. And so I was like, all right, God, I see. I had a couple come to Jesus moments, and I had to talk to him and help him help me work through that whole process. But he did. And in the end, I was able to help. And like I said, I didn't do it begrudgingly. And it was for a person that they weren't my favorite person at all. But it's something that God calls us to do. So when she says helping the coworker that irks your nerves, I mean, I just think that shows who God is. Because God came. Jesus came and died a death. He paid a price that wasn't his. He paid a debt that wasn't his and that we can never repay. He did it because he loves us. And so we should be loving our neighbor. Could I say I actually love that girl? No, but I could show the love of God by helping her with what she needed in her time of need. And that's what I decided to do. I decided to show the love of God. Because I personally didn't have no love for the girl. But I wanted to show the love of God by assisting her. Because it didn't hurt me to help her do that. I could have been mean because she was mean. But what does that do? It's just like hate begets hate. But love begets love. So hopefully next roommate or the next person, maybe she won't treat like that. Maybe she won't. Maybe she will. Who knows? But to see that I still showed up for her after she treated me the way she treated me, I think just shows who God is.
Absolutely. For sure. Yeah. I actually earlier today in my prayer journal, I wrote something down that said, like, God could call us ungrateful. God could call us undeserving, but he calls us his. He calls us sons and daughters. So even when we're in a relationship with people that do us dirty, we don't have to respond with petty.
It's hard.
Yes.
It's hard not to.
Yes. For all of the great things that God has given us, for us to look at someone else and say, like, oh, you did me dirty, so now I'm gonna, and I get it. I have very much had my petty moments, but just love on them. Be a good neighbor.
Because what it does is it's not about us. It's about God. And so in doing that, it glorifies God.
Yes, your actions can honor God. So while we can't be deserving, we can honor him.
We can.
Yeah. And that's an amazing thing to be able to do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I concur.
Yes, very much so. So our challenge for you is to find a small way to help someone this week. And it could be anything. Like I said, it could be a hug, it can be an act of service, what have you. But just find a small way to be a good neighbor. That is my hope for you. That is my prayer for you. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode.
Absolutely. And don't forget, read it for yourself. Share today's takeaway. We want to hear from you.
Please tell us your Good Samaritan stories. Interact with us. We love you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
He's the bread of life, Alpha and Omega, our firm foundation. Jesus!
The well that never runs dry. You're still thirsty off the Henny and you wonder why. J.S.